Hello, everyone. My name is Gary Gomes. I'm a Vedic astrologer of 34 years experience, roughly, and I'm here to talk with you about Vedic astrology, what it means to the society, what it means to you personally, and also how it affects uh, the world and the greater events in the world. So I am an astrologer. I've been a practicing astrologer for 30, pretty nearly 34 years. And if you would like to take lessons with me, or if you would like to have a reading done, I can be contacted at 508-525-0001. Again, that's 508-525-0001. You can also contact me at Gary Gomes, G@gmail.com. So it's GaryGomes, G@gmail.com. So we've had a couple of really interesting events happen over the past week. First of all, Jupiter's gone retrograde, which is always interesting. I personally feel more comfortable with Jupiter retrograde because it gives some unexpected events. It doesn't give essentially a more cliche presentation of life overall, and it also gives a chance to review things you missed in the past, things you maybe wanted to learn, and have a chance to learn them now. So this is a great time to reconsider old coursework that you may have dropped or given up. Uh, Try new events or relearn things, review things. Uh, Sort of like it's sort of a renewal period. And the other big phenomenal event which is happening right now is there's a comet uh, roughly between October 14th and the 16th in the sky. Actually, October 12th, October 16th, excuse me. It'll be visible and roughly between Leo and Virgo, according to the websites I've seen earlier. So essentially, since we're talking about star-based placements, this would be essentially the actual fixed constellations in the sky. So it would be Vedic, Leo, and Virgo. So um, it becomes significant in that uh, comets have always been seen as um, bad omens. So I think one of the things that you have to look at. So I'm trying to get my chart to work. Hold on a second. Just. All right. So essentially, oftentimes they're associated with changes in society or as portents for for people leaving office. So the last one that I can recall that actually did produce that result. Well, actually, I can think of three that produced that result. We had three or four. We had major events in 1980, in 1974, after the Kahutek comet came, and Richard Nixon left office that following summer. We had also in 1986 was Halley's Comet. That was roughly consistent with um, the, the stock market collapse happened quite a few months after that. And also, it was a prelude to to the investigation of Reagan, and also uh, his eventual departure from office. And I believe Hale Bopp was the last one. That was in 1998, and that was when the Clinton impeachment trial started. So a lot of these things, or essentially when they gathered a lot of steam. And so a lot of these events are not good for leaders. You know, there are exceptions. The last comet appearance we had was actually in 2000, or the last significant comet appearance that I can recall was in 2000, late in 2019. And that coincided with, obviously, with the COVID epidemic um, hitting uh, the clo the closure of large parts of the world, and also the e- eventual problems that President Trump had uh, in the contest of 2020. So I I think this is, so again, is this coincidence? I don't know. I mean, they've never reviewed. There are some favorable comments, I have to say that. According to Brihat Sangita, there are a variety of comments which actually produce good results. They're not all negative, but they are change agents, much more so than, let's say, the outer planets in Western astrology would be. So I think one of the things we're going to look at is because uh, this particular comet is occurring in Leo and Virgo. We're going to be looking at shocks in the election. Obviously, we're going to get another president, but I think this will be kind of a surprise or an unexpected event uh, hitting relatively soon. So does that mean President Biden will leave office sooner than expected? Perhaps not. But this is one of the larger comets that we've seen in a long time, and we have no historical perspective to attach to it. The last time it came here was 80,000 years ago. So this is not really a new comet. This is very old. Um, Comet is its orbit. It takes a long, long time, and that's significant. Um, since the sign is Leo and Virgo, we can expect some disease-related phenomena, but again, I don't think it's going to be quite as bad um, as um, what happened in 2020, 2019, 2020, mainly because there were a bunch of malefic planets in conjunction with the comet. And also, whenever you have a cluster of planets occurring in one sign, you tend to get massive change. That was the same thing with the 2001 uh, with September 11th bombing. You tend to get it. If you have a clusters of planets all like focusing on one thing, then the comet tends to cause sort of a tip. That's the way I like to describe it. And not really a massive fail, but there could be some problems with food production because it's in Virgo. There could be some problems with various economies around the world because it affects Leo. And so those are the things I would watch out for. Virgo is still um, in oh, hold on a second. I'm having trouble calling up this chart. One second. All right, so let me try this one more time. I'm not sure why it's doing this. Let me get this rolling. Okay, just 1 second, folks. This is acting pretty strange. And interestingly enough, we have had these large solar flares at the same time as the comet's been occurring. So, all right, so I'm going to dump this program and use another one for the, just for today. So let me just go over here. And I'll see if I can figure it out. Okay. I probably have a glitch in my software, so but luckily we do have another program I can use. So this isn't quite as fancy, but let me just do a few things. What's 1 second, folks? All right. So we're going to make this a bit simple. One of the things I find fascinating is that K2 often does accompany comet sightings. Um, I've noticed this a few times. Uh, it just seems fascinating that let's try to share this screen with you. And this will look a little bit simpler than the screen I'll share with you before, but that's not what I wanted. Sorry about that, folks. 1 second. And stop the share. And let's go down here. Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay, so we're still trying to get it. Sorry about that. All right, so we're on. So this is in big letters. The size of the planets are really uh, outsized, but at least you can see them. And so essentially, this is the chart for the. Don't pay attention to the now San Francisco. I changed it to New Bedford in the actual program. So right now, this is where the comet is generally landing, and you have K2 there as well. And like I said, I've just noticed, noteworthy K2 aspects or no noteworthy K2 incidences coinciding quite frequently, a lot with comet sightings. And so this Sun K2 conjunction over here is really the most important part that we're looking at. So recent polling has indicated the country, people feel the country is moving in the wrong direction. Uh, so that will make us critical of the country, right? Just overall. Some people, I'm sure, are happy with the countries. Other people, I'm sure, are not. And the other thing is, over here, we have people having a general sense of struggle because of the Moon-Saturn conjunction. That's why I couldn't get this to work properly for a few minutes. And I think that this particular combination is really interesting because people's charisma factor tends to go up when there's a Saturn Moon conjunction, but at the same time, they also become much more serious. They become much more dedicated to work. And I think given the fact that we have a Sagittarius rising and in the sixth house, this does indicate some economic concern, some concern over prosperity. There's concern over the future of countries just in general, not necessarily just the United States, but just in general. Everywhere feels a little bit unstable. Um, According to some of my fellow astrologers, which I kind of pushed back against when I heard it, but I think actually it's true now that I think about it again. You'll see many countries go through significant changes over the next 9 months or so, in terms of both leadership, but also in terms of who they're dealing with, who their friends and enemies are. And this Mars in the seventh house does make people very anxious to make some changes. Mars is not a patient planet. By the time the election is held in the United States, Mars will be debilitated. So that means it's in its worst possible sign. Rahu's in the fourth house. That indicates basically upset. And if you're not upset with Harris, you're upset with Trump. So like goes both ways. And even though last week I said, I think Trump's going to win, there's still that little element of doubt that I have, and that I'm not giving up, of not because I doubt the astrology I'm using, but because this is such a weird time in astrology. But there will definitely be a series of disruptive events over the next, I would say, 6 months. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean a dictatorship. It may mean, again, like I said, as was said, there may be a handing down of power before the presidency, before the next term of the president starts. There may be, with the Sun K2, there may be a loss of several leaders around the world. The Mars K2 aspect, Mars is very close to moving into Cancer, so presidential candidates are still in danger. They're still trying to earn our trust to a very large extent. I think that's been one of the things that's been noticeable about this particular campaign. Although you have a large amount of excitement about candidates or the candidates who are running on both sides, it seems like a lot of the enthusiasm for Miss Harris has for Vice President Harris has tempered down and has shifted back to Trump and has shifted over to Trump just recently. Now, again, this could turn on a dime, okay? And it's going to depend on which news show you're watching as to whether or not you believe that's true or not. But uh, essentially, this race has been unprecedented in a variety of ways. And like I said, the only race I can think of, there was a similar race. Okay, so this is something, people are saying, well, there hasn't been a similar race. Actually, there was. 1968 was a very similar race, not identical, but similar. So you had the president drop out, not necessarily at the last minute, but he pulled himself out. And so that was President Johnson. Hubert Humphrey was anointed at the convention as hit. And so all the Johnson delegates went to Humphrey. Bobby Kennedy was shot. Richard Nixon rehabilitated himself basically. He made a comeback. So there are a lot of parallels, but quite as um, they're not quite as extreme. And what I put that on is essentially that Rahu Saturn conjunction happening over here in Pisces, which did happen, but it happened over a more extended period of time. So you had much more time to get used to it, much more time to get used to the discontent. And so if Rahu's in the fourth house of a chart, people are feeling insecure. Jupiter's in the sixth house. They don't think they have good guides. Mars is in the seventh house. They're fighting with each other. Sun and Ketu, there's distrust of the government. And Mercury is finally pretty much unafflicted for at least for a little while. So we'll at least get, I would say, for about 2 weeks, maybe, or maybe about a week, some more or less unfiltered news. That'll change before the end of the month, though. And the reason I'm saying that is because Mars will change signs and will start aspecting Mercury again. Okay, so that'll last for maybe about a week. Venus is aspected by Saturn, and so this will give some difficulty in financial markets, in finances. And we did receive news lately that although there was an increase in hires, there was also an increase in the number of people filing for unemployment for the first time. So it doesn't seem like you have anything which is like a clear-cut signal as to how the economy is moving, and that Sun-K2 conjunction will tend to cause that. And I think as the Sun moves closer to the Saturn aspect, it was in the Saturn aspect all up until about 3 weeks ago. It was under Saturn aspect. It'll be under Saturn aspect in mid-November. It'll be weak in around the time of the election in the United States. And also, you're seeing a lot of countries around the world, so China's in real economic trouble. Most countries around the world. So in fairness to the current administration, we have weathered this, the economic situation far better than the rest of the world has. That being said, it's still not good. And if the rest of the world starts having some economic problems, like Germany's recently announced they've had some economic problems, and and many countries around the world are. So we're talking about the dynamos of the world economy, China, Japan, Germany, all all sort of indicating weak economies. Now that could be recovered, and maybe there'll be a peace accord, but the Mars K2 and the Mars Mercury aspects sort of fight against that. Venus is stuck in what's called an unfriendly sign. Okay. It's in an enemy sign and is aspected by Saturn. Now, Jupiter does help these combinations out a bit because Jupiter is aspecting Venus and is aspecting the Sun in K2. So that's actually fairly good. It's in an angle to the moon, which is what's called a Geograaphic yoga. So that increases people's popularity. And but that comet, like I said, unexpected changes in leadership are almost a cliche when comets come. So, and again, they can also bring other problems with them as well, including disease, including there's not a cause and effect, so I'm not just saying that to protect myself. But basically, comets are unexpected phenomena we see in the sky. They're referred to as K2s. K2s are disruptors or thieves. So this can be a very freeing experience for some people. They can decide to do something they put off doing for a long time. And I think that Jupiter, so they'll worry less about material security and more about doing what they want to do, especially with the Jupiter retrograde. So the Jupiter retrograde can sometimes be good and sometimes can be bad because it's Jupiter, and because Jupiter's an inherently optimistic planet, and because it's aspecting um, optimistic Venus. There can be a feeling that you can do anything at this particular point in time. And so essentially, but that Saturn will essentially restrict that feeling or restrict that emotion. But this is a good time for savings or for putting money away. Okay. So that's one of the things that the map does show. And also, just given the fact that Venus is in a sign ruled by Mars, which does tend to increase um, interest in sex and sexual relations. There'll be a lot more people interested in getting together with other individuals and more interest in dating. Only a few signs, though, should really consider that as being a go-ahead signal for engaging in relationships. Because, as I said, the Jupiter retrograde can be sometimes overly optimistic. Okay, so it doesn't mean that you shouldn't date or shouldn't see people, but just be cautious. Um, the so given the fact that we also have this potential for more water disasters because of Rahu and Pisces, and also more land disasters because of Mars aspecting K2, so earthquakes, volcanoes, accidents, travel accidents are quite possible. So you have to be really careful out there, just in terms of travel. And let's see now. So let's go to the actual individual signs. For this month, I'm going to do that a little bit earlier than I normally do. And hopefully I'll get them in less than an hour today. So, but pay attention to rulers around the world. And I'm thinking in particular of people like the King of England. King Charles has health issues. Um, there are leadership disputes in France going on right now, leadership disputes going on in Germany, some leadership disputes going on in China, and there's a switch in Japan in the leadership. So it's kind of a mess, so nobody has, um, I wouldn't say any particular country has uh, either a clear or a non-controversial mandate. So again, and you'll see increasing pressure on censorship, I would say, when Mercury gets over here to Scorpio, which will be in about a month's time. So let's look over here um, and look at Aries and for this coming week. Aries still has that Jupiter in the second house. Be a little bit more optimistic than normal, and also, but it may be more prone to spend a little bit more. But there will be money coming in from the spouse or the relationship partner. And Mars is in the third house. That makes the sign braver, more polished, but that'll change within about a week's time as well. So the sign will be less optimistic about the future within about a week. And Sun and Ketu are in the sixth house, excuse me. And this can indicate some illnesses to children. Mercury's in the seventh. So there is a potential for this sign to get involved with younger people, not necessarily relationship-wise, but this sign down here does increase sexual temptation, and the Saturn and Moon conjunction indicates some difficulty with friendships, and Rahu in the 12th, again, overspending, not really being realistic, maybe spending too much on technology. Jupiter's in the first house for Taurus. This is May 15th to June 15th. And essentially, Jupiter's actually well placed. So people with a Taurus rising, actually a relatively good month for relationships, although they'll be a bit aggressive. And Mars is in the second house. This is a combination for Mars affliction. So even though you may have a temptation to get together with somebody, maybe wait until Mars, maybe wait about a week for that to act upon that. The Sun and Ketu are in the fifth house. Some health problems to children are indicated from this chart. Mercury's in the sixth. Good potential for money, but I think you'll have to work very hard for it. Venus is in the seventh. Relationship partners will be very aggressive and very sensual. We have Saturn and Moon in the 10th house. That's a good combination for financial growth, but with hard work. The 11th house has Jupiter in the 11th house, good for friendships, but also a little bit rough. I would say for friends won't be loyal. Let's put it that way. For Gemini, now Gemini has Mars in the first house, Jupiter's in the 12th. So again, relationship partners will come back or start to associate with you again. That'll be good, but in about 4 to 5 months, there may be signs they're leaving again. So just be careful. That's if you're in a relationship. If you're not in a relationship, some good relationship opportunities after June of next year. Mars is Ketu's in the fourth house. So some disputes or some worries over family members. Mercury's in the fifth. Children will be a little bit temperamental or difficult to deal with. Venus is in the sixth. That's not necessarily a bad combination, but it will indicate some weakness in terms of relationships. Seventh house Lord is Jupiter. Lord of the seventh is in the 12th. Relationship partner, first of all, seem to be backing away, and now they're returning. Saturn and Moon are in the ninth house, and I think this combination is actually good for the fame or the monetary position of this particular sign. Rahu's in the 10th, very good for fame and recognition. For financial growth, though, pretty good for financial growth for this sign as well. So that's not bad. Uh, let's see now. Cancer has I'm sorry, the Upapada in the first house. This has to do with relationships. So this sign will be very attracted to people. And again, I think one of the things of it is a relationship pattern is a little bit dicey or uneven. So relationship partners will tend to change their mind, or you may be reconsidering how a relationship should be conducted in your life. Sun and Ketu are in the third house. This is good for personal advancement. It's good for aggression. It's good for aggressive behavior and for going after what you want. Mercury's in the fourth house. A lot of changes at home. People a little bit changeable in what they're viewing and what they're going after. Uh, Venus is in the fifth house, so children will be a little better. But again, there is some indication they can be a little bit depressed, so you have to watch out for that. Seventh house Lord is in the eighth, so relationship partners are not quite that honest with you to be truthful. And Rahu is in the ninth house. Rahu in the ninth house is actually very good for career success, especially in terms of financial gains. Mars is in the 12th. This sign is also subject to what I would call Mars affliction. So you may have relationship partners taking advantage of you, especially monetarily. For Leo, Leo has the Sun and Ketu in the second house. And so that gives a sign of trying to gather money and hold on to money, but it spills out. Mercury's in the third house. That's good for financial growth. Venus is in the fourth. That's somewhat good for career. Give some career advancement, especially with Jupiter in the 10th house of career. And fifth house Lord is Jupiter. Jupiter is located in the 10th house. Again, that'll give luck or perhaps recognition for the work you've done in your career already. We have Saturn and Moon in the seventh house. So relationship partners will seem to be a little bit standoffish or a little difficult to deal with, but loyal. Rahu's in the eighth house. You have to watch out for people pulling things behind your back and maybe plotting against you. This isn't to make anybody paranoid. It's just the state of what Leo is right now. And also people trying to defame you a little bit. Jupiter's in the 10th. We've already beaten that to death, but it does promise some financial gains in this chart. For Virgo, Virgo has Sun and Ketu in the first house, so Virgo is very psychic this month. A lot of changes, a lot of unexpected optimism because Jupiter's in the ninth house, aspecting Venus. It's a nice combination. And the Sun and Ketu can give you a willingness to learn new things. Can also make a person quite intuitive. That's one of the more intuitive placements in a chart. So you can sense what people are about to say before they say it. But you have to be careful about being careless with money. Mercury's in the second house, and the Lord of Mercury is in the third house. So strong desire for money, strong ability to get it, but only through hard work. Saturn is in the sixth house along with the moon. That gives some financial gains, but again, through hard work. Relationship life actually looks interesting, but these can be people I wouldn't encourage you to get together with because they're hiding more secrets. Jupiter's in the ninth house. That's actually nullifies this position a little bit. So these people will promise a lot relationship-wise or even business-wise. They're capable of delivering, but you'll have to make sure they don't promise too much. Mars is in the 10th, very good for career growth. For Libra, Mercury's in the first house, a lot of interest in education and especially spiritual life, but definitely, and again, this is very impulsive mood to take educational activities on. Sun and Ketu are in the 12th house, again, very intuitive, good for luck and speculative ventures. Venus is in the second house, that's very good for financial growth, although it will be slow. And Saturn and Moon are in the fifth house. That's good for luck. Saturn's in its own sign, good for career luck through hard work. Sixth house has Rahu in it, so you have to be careful about health issues. But they're mostly going to be scares as opposed to real health issues. Jupiter's in the eighth. You have to watch out for growths or unexpected increases in size. So this can be a little bit of a warning sign for tumors, but I don't think it's really that serious. Mars is in the ninth house. So again, there's a lot of rapid acquisition of knowledge. So overall, not a bad week for Libra. But again, there are some at Jupiter in the eighth house. You know, if you have anything suspicious, I get it checked out. For Scorpio, Scorpio has Venus and Jupiter opposing each other. That's usually good for relationship opportunities, but we also have Mars in the eighth house. So as I said with Taurus, wait for about a week before you start getting really interested in relationship life. K2, I'm sorry, Moon and Saturn are in the fourth house. It can give this person high position or the ability to make or break people. Rahu's in the fifth house. This sign is definitely not going to be happy with its lot in life this month. And it will go looking for relationship partners or even to subvert relationship partners to a certain extent. For Mars, oh, in this chart, this is Mars affliction for Scorpio rising, but Mars will enter the ninth house, so it'll be a little bit better. It'll enter Cancer, where it's a bit weak, so the Mars affliction will be largely taken away. Sun and Ketu are in the 11th house. So again, for this sign, as I've said throughout the year, don't trust the government, don't trust your friends. Get everything in writing, okay? Mercury's in the 12th house in this chart. That's very good for spiritual growth. It's also good for investing. It's also good for saving money. So from a financial perspective, Scorpio isn't doing too badly. Sagittarius has its Lord in the sixth house. We already discussed this a little bit when I discussed the United States. But basically, the sign will feel like everything's a struggle. There'll be a lot of forced activity, a lot of expenses. Moon and Saturn are in the third house, so the sign will be brave and strong, and definitely looking for changes in its domestic life. We have Mars in the seventh house, so again, another classic Mars affliction combination. So no new relationships for you, Sagittarius, not for another 3 months, I don't think. And we have the Sun and K2 in the 10th house. Good for career recognition, but not so much for raises. Some financial growth, some small financial growth, but it gets spent, it gets absorbed by something else. For Capricorn, Capricorn is actually not in bad shape. It's conservative in terms of its spending, in terms of its earnings. It shows good potential for gains and good work life, a lot of ambition, and a lot of financial luck. The only flaw here is that the sign may be too aggressive or too competitive, and it may have to watch out for uh, government interference. So if any of you are making a lot of money and not reporting it, I would be very careful. Um, for Aquarius, um, we have Saturn and Moon in the first house. This gives Aquarius sort of like a very competitive streak. And also things come to it relatively easily. Rahu's in the second house. That's good for financial growth, although will be a little bit frustrating. Some financial growth through the home. Mars is in the fifth house. We have, um, I'm just trying to think of a good way to describe that. Some fights with kids, some disturbances with children, and that'll calm down in about a week or so. But the sign will lose a lot of its aggressive energy too within about a week or so. We have Sun and Ketu in the eighth house. So again, there's a lot of interest in digging behind the scenes, looking up things. Mercury's in the ninth. This is not a bad combination. This is actually very good. So it gives a lot of gains from past life efforts. Venus is in the 10th house. Now it's aspected by Saturn, and normally in Vedic astrology, Saturn's aspects aren't good. But this forms what's called a Raj Yoga. It's a kind of a Dana Yoga for this particular chart and for Capricorn. So essentially, it does mean this sign will make a lot of money this month. So that's it for Aquarius. We'll go on to Pisces. Pisces has Rahu in the first house, Jupiter in the third, so a lot of ambition, reconsidering some of the investments it made or reconsidering some of the efforts it made to deal with people. Prone to fights this month, especially with relationship partners who seem kind of aggressive. They'll pass within about a week, but the aggression of relationship partners won't really die away for about a week, about a week's time. They'll still seem a little bit irritated, but they'll calm down a bit. For Mercury's in the eighth house, very good for investigation. Venus is in the ninth house, is the exalted planet for Pisces. So this actually gives a good deal of financial growth for this sign. And the 10th house Lord is in the third house, so there's strong interest in career advancement or career or promoting oneself career-wise. Saturn, Moon in the 12th house, again, there is a tendency to overspend or be a little bit careless with money. So I would advise you not to spend so quickly this month. Let's go to the time and space chart and see what that shows us. Okay. And we're going to make it bigger. Try to make it bigger. Oh, okay, there we go. Okay, so that's good. So we have a Mercury line and a Sun line close to Alaska and and we also have a Mars line. So there's not really much for people to interact with, but there may be some fighting in Alaska and Russia. This is a fairly isolated area. Also some potential for earthquakes or seaquakes. Excuse me, I didn't mean to do that. All right. There's a Venus line and a moon line, so this could indicate some water accidents, possibly. It really doesn't interact with land until we get over here. Venus doesn't interact with Saturn until we get to Washington State, Oregon, and Northern California. So there could be some flooding or even some political scandals in that state over the next few weeks. Um, we have, I need to move this out of the way. We have a Rahu line running through New Mexico all the way up through Montana. Um, and let's see now, Texas, Mexico. So this could mean some illegal activity happening over here. A very obvious illegal activity happening in this particular belt right here, especially in Texas. And finally, we have a sun line running through Mexico down into Guatemala, Nicaragua, and El Salvador. And I think a sun line can indicate some disruption in government structures. There's a Mercury line running through Florida, so Florida and Georgia and North and South Carolina were hit heavily this past week by hurricanes. That's really because of the strength of Venus being aspected by Jupiter. That's and also because of the effect of Rahu in Pisces. But a lot of that could still come over the next couple of weeks, especially hitting Panama and even Peru and Ecuador. And we have a Mars line running up through Cuba and the Virgin Islands and maybe hitting the East Coast. So there may be some violence in this part of the world right here. Some potential for water disasters in it, or even earthquakes, minor possibilities of earthquakes. Venus is running through Guyana, Brazil, Paraguay, and Uruguay, and through Argentina. So this should indicate some flooding down here, and especially with the moon line up through Paraguay and Uruguay and going up through Brazil. So this entire region right here will probably be afflicted by heavy rains. The moon goes up, kind of touches Iceland, but not really. And we have a Saturn line, so that could indicate some economic hardship in Iceland. We have a Rahu line, possibly some scandal on the west coast of Africa, and also in Spain, Portugal. Mercury is going through Ireland right now. The Mercury and the Sun line are affecting Ireland right now. And we also have a Venus line hitting Scotland. So all these regions right here are prone to governmental scandals and prone to governments getting in trouble. And let's see now, if we go down to Algeria and down into near Ghana and down to South Africa, we have a sun line. So all those governments are going to have some kind of political scandals or political disruptions going on. The other thing is we have a Jupiter line running through Norway, Sweden, Finland, over here into Poland and down into the western part of Turkey and through Saudi Arabia and intersected by a moon line. So you could see some changes in governments or some changes in the judicial system in those countries. Interestingly enough, nothing is hitting Israel or Lebanon, at least according to this map. But the moon line does indicate some desire for change, some movement. Hopefully that will happen, and hopefully it'll be positive movement. We have a Saturn line running right through Iran, and it's surrounded by a Jupiter. It's a Jupiter-Saturn line that's surrounding it. So this will be, the country will be rather dogmatic, rather aggressive. Um, so that's, it is what it is. And if I look over towards the Ukraine, there's a moon line running through the Ukraine. So that actually indicates there is an interest in a change of leadership in Ukraine right now, but I don't think we're going to see that happen. Saturn is running through Russia, so the economy in Russia doesn't appear to be doing well. And we have a Mercury line running through India, Bhutan, and not Bhutan, excuse me, Ladakh and Bangladesh, and essentially this particular region should have some. Let me just see, that's a Mars or Mercury. That's a Mars. So some potential aggressive activity in that part of the world, maybe some Earth activity, but more likely aggressive emotion. And especially because the sun's involved, it looks like it involves government. So hopefully there won't be a border dispute between China and India. Let's cross our fingers that that doesn't happen. We have a Mercury line running through Thailand, Laos, Cambodia, not really touching Vietnam, but essentially those parts of the world look like they're going to be having increased communications or increased financial benefits. There's a Mars line. Let me just see what this is. Yeah, there's a Mars line running through eastern China, running close to Korea and Japan. So we all know this part of the world is kind of tense right now. And as a matter of fact, it's almost afflicting the Philippines and down into Borneo and down into Indonesia. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. And interestingly, there's a Saturn line running through Japan. So this kind of underscores the potential for some kind of economic difficulty in Japan and also in Eastern Australia, excuse me, and some conflicts in the cities in Australia and some possibility of heavy rains in Western Australia. The other parts I'd like to look at are Rahu is affecting, it looks like the Marshall Islands, and also causing some anxiety out there. And finally, we have this last line, which is a sun line passing through New Zealand. So again, it does indicate the government's in trouble in that part of the world. That's not a surprise. That's been that way for a few months. All right, so that's it for me for this week. I want to thank everyone for watching. I'll try to spice it up a lot more over the next few weeks. And thank you very much. I love you all. I wish you the best of luck over the coming week. People with planets in Leo uh, and Virgo shouldn't get too concerned about the comet. It's just really pay attention to what you're doing a little bit more aggressively, and also I think the big lesson for people this week, or the big rule for people this week, is not to go off too 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 aggressively without knowing all the facts. I think that's something that we've been doing a lot over the past 7 years or so, and I don't think it's served us well at all. Okay, so that's just my editorializing. And again, I hope everyone has a wonderful week. There are opportunities out there. The Sun K2 combination is actually absolutely splendid for not letting people's conceptions of you stand in the way of what you want to do. It's absolutely splendid for that. Okay. And there is some good energy between Jupiter and Venus. So there are some good things in the chart. All right. So um, I'm not really a doom and gloom kind of a person. I can always see a silver lining to uh, even to big changes that are coming. And I think next June, July, we'll come out of the sequence a lot happier, maybe preparing for some changes in our lives, but a lot happier, a lot more contented with life, and also a lot more in control of our lives. Okay, folks. All right. I'll see you later. Thank you so much for watching. Again, I don't want to beat it to death, but I do love you all. And if you could subscribe, like, share, please do so. I appreciate each and every one of you. And thank you again for watching. Namaste.